Now, as well, one of the things that also comes up when we talk about how change impacts others is the fact that there is that negativity towards it. There are going to be some people that maybe don't like the change that they're seeing, that you're creating or that you're doing, whether it's personal or professional. How do you deal with that?
Well, I'll address that in two parts, because I think one of the things that we didn't talk about was how long it takes.
Yeah.
And that, there's a lot of research around shaping your future self into, changing yourself, shaping this future ideal you. It's a deliberate practice, and it's, a series of multiple small goals as well as the big goal. So it's not have your vision board, stick your stickers on it or whatever and go. It's really important. So along the journey, how you surround yourself with supporters versus detractors, I think, is as much as an important thing to recognize as those who may detract from you at the you that you are today.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you can't really effectively grow without a direction to that growth, and you need those goals for that. And along the journey, I know for myself, I did not do this on my own. And yet I have a background in mental wellness. I have a background in behavior change. I still went to experts for motivation and tips and grounding and ways to check in and be authentic. I spoke to a small number of trusted friends and family about what I was struggling with. And it was incredible. It was incredible to be that vulnerable. That was another change for me and challenge, was to be vulnerable, to admit that I didn't feel well, that I had, regrets and shame, that I felt overwhelmed with the changes I needed to make, that I felt scared of my future and what it would be. And so from the very early days, I evolved slightly, somewhat, and I'm still working on myself in many areas, including, my husband will tell you patience and a few other ones, right? But we're all working on different areas. I essentially almost, when you're a child and you get to draw the about me for school, and you have all these dimensions of who you are. And my kids have, all kinds of things in that describe their brain. Right. So I kind of almost, and as someone's, a little bit educated in neuroscience, I say this with a little bit of there's a joke in here. It's not realistic, but I kind of attack each quadrant, and I say quadrant more of like a drawing of the brain and all those areas at the time, because the other thing is, these changes not only don't happen overnight, they may or may not be universal and complete, right? So you may have to just say, I can't change everything. Let me focus on one or two things that I can. And so along that way, if you can get supporters and or lessen the detractors or dampen the noise and the mental space you give to the detractors, that will set you up for that resilience in the current, environment, for when someone perhaps isn't supportive or questions you and that kind of thing. So for me, it's sort of like a stepwise process before I get to the end. And a lot of that is only possible from looking to support.
And so you've brought up so many good points, and that was a great question, Grace, because it actually leads perfectly into our next one, which is more around that mental strength that you need to have, not only to get through this transition, like you've discussed, right? The different ways that you need to have mental fortitude to say, I'm not going to listen to the people that aren't believing in me, or I'm going to just
the distractors.
Sorry,
I'm
going to be using that. The distractors.
The things like trolls on social comments. My social media use is mostly professional. And I don't put too much personal. I have put for the first time a few photos and things like that, and some personal things as they relate to my mission and what I'm trying to accomplish within industry. But, I don't put myself out. I am also careful not to put myself out there too much for those kinds of places, especially like in Instagram and what have you, where people critique your eyelashes and your nose hairs and your hairstyle and whatever, that everyone has to say everything about what you do or what you said, your lexicon, everything. So I do kind of am mindful about how much I share and where I share it. And that's a part of it. And I'm not looking to share it because I want some kind of validation. So it's also your motivations for what you're doing. If they're for yourself, then it doesn't really matter what anyone else says. It's for you. How do you feel about it? And that's step one.
Yeah. And you're able to be mature enough to say to yourself, I'm not going to put myself out there if, I love that you've had that maturity to say, I'm going to guard myself in the ways that feels right to me. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it took me long enough. I wish I was as self-actualized as I'm starting to be now, in my 20s. And I work with some of these young people, Gen Z and younger millennials, and they inspire me. I'm not saying this just for lip service. They literally inspire me almost every day of my life with their inner strength, with their wanting to recognize and understand their place in the world and how they can be a part of a bright, the future in a positive way. It's incredible. And I'm so moved by that. And sometimes I think, well, maybe my time is up. I'm old. And then I have to remind myself that, well, I'm still here. So this counts. And, back to the catalyst part, that future casting, that future self, only you can answer that question. And only when you define it for yourself can you go towards it. And so that's it. That first step is imagining that future self for yourself. What does that look like? And then break it down into those quadrants around whether they have to be. I mean, one of my areas was sleep. I used to pride myself on not getting any sleep, almost like it was some kind of honor badge. Now I'm like, no, this is bad. If I really don't prioritize sleep for too many days, I force myself to reset and literally set alarms on devices and things like that to get myself to go to bed, because I know from a biology standpoint, I need that sleep. So there are little things, that other people might not even know about that help you, be the best you. And those are for yourself.
Oh my goodness. You've shared so much good stuff.